kind of wanted to bring you guys into a day in the life of us at the Sturgis farm and what we try to do and get accomplished. And you know, depending on the week, we're doing a lot of this or a lot of that, but there's always work to be done. So between running the seed company, Pure Wildlife Lens, and going to clients and working with partners and everything else we do, we still have to take care of a lot on the property. And yesterday was one of those days. It was about a 10 and a half hour day, and we don't take breaks. And so that was a long time of getting a lot done. And we're gonna just skip around the farm here and talk about some of those things we did. One of the things right here, we had multiple things happening here, but I'm just gonna show and point out one thing here. And that was, we spread buckwheat on approximately 14 acres. I added it up, and that's about what it is. And that buckwheat, kind of interesting now, on an earthway spreader, you can see all the black in here, the dark, that's buckwheat. There's also some that is a lighter brown color compared to the black. So if you put them side by side, I can tell by experience these darker ones stick out more than the lighter ones. And so when you're looking at the ground, you can see all the dark, probably not fully representative of exactly what's on here. But on 14 acres, it doesn't matter if it's an earthway spreader, which is what we've used for, I've used since, 25 years. But that, or a spreader type, but those earthway spreaders, it's setting about 3.5 to 4, depending on how fast you walk, depending on how fast you spin your arms. One of the things we have to do, and yesterday we calibrated our PTO mounted spreader on the tractor. And the way you do that simply is we're starting with a set amount. Now, it'd be better if it was a set quarter acre, because then you're only putting 12.5 pounds of seed. It's 50 pounds per acre. So if we're looking at a quarter acre, then I'm going to take 12.5 pounds of seed, put it in the bag spreader, hopper, and I want to be done with that seed by the time I'm done with that plot, and not too early, not too late. I'd rather put out a little extra seed and just adjust our seeding rate amount than a little bit too light. So 50 pounds is great, 35 pounds not, 80 pounds is too much, but if it's 60, who cares? 65, you're just, spending a little bit too much on seed then. So that's one way of calibrating it, but that's at the end. Another gauge I go by is if you average these seeds, we're at about 2 to 3 inches spacing between seeds. And if you look at that compared to my boot and some of these darker colors, you can see that some are closer, some are further, but you can see they're all on average, we'll say about 2 inches, 2 to 3 inches. And that's what you want, because that buckwheat head on it is about that big. And so if you have a seed every 3 inches, those heads are running into each other, and that's called a smother crop because it's a full canopy. Because of that full leaf canopy, it shades out the ground, retains moisture, and it smothers weed growth. And so it's really important. So we calibrated the tractor, and that was more, for one, you got to see how far it spreads. So we're literally looking at seeds in a bare area. Yeah, that's about right, because you have to guesstimate when you're going around the field. Of course, quarter acre is better. We started on, and this is about a quarter acre here, we started on a 4 acre plot. So we started with 200 pounds of seed, and we ran it out, calibrated it, and so one area is heavy, one area is light. We went back to the light area, added some more seed to it fast, tried to even it all out. But I can tell you from experience, a little bit easier to calibrate on something smaller. But we had 14 acres to do yesterday, and that was one of our main chores yesterday, getting that out. And that will take over the next 5 weeks to 8 weeks, depending on what we're planting. And then we'll convert that to our fall crops sometime in July, and beginning of July to the end of July, depending on what we're planting. And I'll help take care of our weeds, build the soil. It's a magical crop, but that was just one of the things. Let's go take a look at a couple other things we did yesterday too. Well, this is the second thing we did yesterday. This was old rye that grew last fall. And with this old rye, we had it planted last fall. It was part of our deer, we add rye over the top of our fall power greens And that's that layering effect. That's what we talk about in the planting instructions. That's what we encourage people to do, because you have that early to mid-season crop. As that's starting to get light, then you add that reinforcing layer of 150 pounds per acre rye. That's what this is right here. So we killed this about 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago. And that was our first step in here. But yesterday we had to kill the new rye, or in this case, won't mention any names, but someone didn't spray this area. This should have been new rye, and you can see the rye was planted late then, but you see all the weeds that start to come in. And it's amazing the difference in the amount of weeds here that didn't have rye starting in the spring versus when we go right over here, the area that had spring rye planted. And in that spring rye, that rye has an ability to start to compete with weeds. And this is more that spring rye right here. And you can see that's why it's still a little bit of green right here. I ended up spraying that at the same time because it was tall enough. But you can see when you have the spring rye, no broadleafs. And when you don't have spring rye over there, broadleafs. So there's some fields yesterday we were just simply spraying the spring rye. That's what we had left. That area over there was missed. So along with this whole area is coated in buckwheat. If we get to an area where it's a little bit more open soil, we'd probably be able to pick out some of those seeds in here. But we have little bits of buckwheat. You can see those 3 right there on my fingernails, and more over here. But this whole field is planted in buckwheat. Again, this is one of the 14 acres of buckwheat we put in. And then of course we sprayed. Now you can spray at the same time. We sprayed Liberty. Liberty knocks out strong and tough broadleafs like those over there, some pigweed, and it'll take care of water hemp, smartweed, lamb's quarter, so it's pretty good stuff. But we sprayed all of those spring planted rye, or this one missed area on the property. And then you get into this area. This was the stuff that was sprayed about 10 days ago. So you can see how much it's yellowed. It takes about a week for it to do that. So we had a lot of spraying to do. We divided up that spraying into 2 different days, you know, about 10 days apart. But you can even see out here where you get away from the thatch, you can see how much buckwheat. Again, it's that spacing of 2 to 3 inches here, all over those dark spots, and there's some of those light brown in there. You can see the lighter ones that don't stick out quite as much. But bottom line, we had that spraying to do because we have to control weeds. This is an example right here. You'll have clients, people online, they'll say, well, there's a lot of open soil here. Folks, I can tell you that all these broadleafs in here, we even have some small trees coming in. There's lamb's quarters in here. There's just some dandelion weeds right here. Some various grasses, probably some brome grass mixed in. Pigweed is prevalent in here. Here's some lamb's quarters right here. But all of these weeds, pigweed right here. So this will come in and it'll completely take over that buckwheat. So why even bother putting 50 pounds per acre out here if you're just going to let the weeds take over it? And that's where you have to take care of weeds. You're not going to get your intended crop. And I have other weed videos, but people say, you know, weeds are good in a food plot. They never are. There's certain weeds that deer will eat. You can even pull up the nutritional values of ragweed, goldenrod that could be coming in here. Deer will eat during the summertime. Those weeds are not available for forage in fall and winter when deer actually need it. They don't need this stuff during the summertime. Those are the weeds everywhere. And so they don't need it. But then there's some noxious weeds in here, like lamb quarters, but especially pigweed, where if we allow the pigweed to take hold in here, within 2 years, this will all be pigweed. No matter what we plant, it'll all be pigweed. It'll take over everything. So you have to identify those weeds, identify that there's no noxious weeds, and then you have to know that they're going to take volume out for the fall, let alone in this case with this smattering of broadleafs we have in here, they just completely take over this buckwheat planting. So that was another activity yesterday, very, very critical to what we do. And let's sit over here because we had another thing we love doing every year just because it offers immediate, really cool, beautiful results quickly and immediately, so that we enjoy doing it and showcasing it to others too. So let's go check it out. Well, we had Wes last Friday mow our clover. We had to remow a couple other spots yesterday, so we also spray liquid fertilizer on our clover after mowing. You don't spray that before because it absorbs into the plant, the liquid does, and so you don't want to spray then cut. You want to cut then mow, and so that's what we did out here. We cut, and yesterday I had to cut a little bit, and then we sprayed 3-18-18 Deer Grow liquid fertilizer for clover. And that's exactly what it's for. It's liquid fertilizer. It absorbs into a plant at a much higher percentage than granular does. Granular, you have to wait for it to go through the soil and get to the root system. This goes directly into the plant, so it gives it a great boost. So we always do that after we mow, and we always only mow once a year, sometimes twice. And so if we see weeds that are coming up in here and persist to the point where it's going to kill the clover, then we'll go ahead and try to take it out. But this is what we want our clover to look like. And I could say that some of our fields even look better than this. As far as the amount of weeds, I would say this is 95% of the intended clover, alfalfa, and chicory. But it's looking really good. And so this is what we do. And it does offer immediate benefit. You can see how much is growing. It looks beautiful. We have a camera right over there. So we enjoy when this happens every year, and we cut it because it is beautiful, and it's just kind of a testament to that hard work rewarded. Now, we did have areas, and I'll point out this area over here, that were light. And so we had the 14 acres of buckwheat we put out all over the entire property. The corner to corner, it's 1.1 miles, lots of hills, roads. So just travel time, that takes a while, calculation time, really getting it together exactly the way we want on our spread rate. And then spraying on all those areas. Doesn't matter if you spray right on top of the seed, it's not going to kill the seed. We use that Liberty, and some AMS, 2 pounds per acre of AMS, and 3 quarts, 2 to 3 quarts. I actually bumped it up to 3 quarts per acre of Liberty Ultra. And then so we had the spraying, the buckwheat, the mowing, the spraying of liquid fertilizer on our clover. We did that on all our clover fields. There's 9 plots totaling about 2 acres. And then we had a couple areas like this where I had to spread some clover. I just wanted to fill this area in right here. Doing a great job on weed control. This is mostly clover, but it's an area that was robbed a little bit of topsoil. And so you can see how clover is doing great out here, more topsoil, and then you get back over to here where it's a little bit more hard clay and runoff. And we're just going to have to build this clover a little apart. But I like being a perfectionist with the food plots, so I'll go into an area like this. I think it would fill in with clover, over the next couple of years, but I'd rather, we have rain coming this week, so there's just a handful of small areas like this where I went in, and that's setting 1. We used our perennial mix, and I put it on setting 1, so it's very, very light when it comes out. I like to keep my fingers down on the earthway, and you can barely, so we're talking like an area like this. I mean, literally, I don't even know if it would have been enough seed to fill in my palm and be this high. So you're putting out really, really, really light, just a very little bit, like finger high amount of clover over an area like that. Literally that much clover in there. So really not that much. So that was our day yesterday, and I'm probably forgetting some things that we actually did too on top of that. All the times we had to fill up with spray and seed, and trying to coordinate that together with the side-by-side, Jen riding the tractor. And oh, by the way, mixing in the kids in with all that. But it was about a 10 and a half hour day almost straight of working. And that was just a glimpse into one of our days in the farm. Obviously a busy day, but it takes a lot of work to do what we do. And that's why I continually, Dylan, I don't know what you think about that, me saying that, but when we go out to public land, it is a lot less work. It's more hiking time. It is more relaxing. I'm not saying I don't enjoy doing all of this. I love it. And you can even look back here. I mean, look at this, is a testament to what we did yesterday. You can just see the green we killed, the different layers of crop over here, the green right here, different sprayings. This was fertilizer spraying, that's herbicide out there, but a lot of work to make all this work, and you have to do it in the correct order of everything, and you have to do it so that you're not spooking deer. That's the bottom line. This is an area where we can't come back here and hunt in this 2.5 acre field. We have to hunt from up there or off to the sides. We kill them down there in a water hole, not right here, unless we're hunting from a gun out of that redneck way in the back. But that has to be all a part of it too. The approach, everything, or this food plot is worthless. And everything we do is worthless if we're not considering how we hunt it. So again, that's a day in the life of us, and hope you enjoy seeing some of the reward that we get, because it's ultimately about taking care of the deer and the critters during the times they need it the most, in the fall and winter, and having a great hunt. Now we are and we own Pure Wildlife Blends Seed Company, and we really want you to try us out. We have about 19 different offerings online. These all go back to my roots of 25 years ago and up to 30 years ago when I first started food plotting. But making these combinations, I sit at the table with our seed supplier, put all these blends together. We use pure seed with no filler, no garbage. And it's early May right now, and it's a great time to start looking at your seed. We do not run out of seed. Doesn't matter if it's switchgrass, clover, perennial blends, our fall blends, whatever it is, we don't run out. We don't want you to come at one point and then we're not here, come back in another, keep looking. We always have it on supply. Wes, our food plot seed manager, is right back there. He's shipping out daily, and really want you to check us out. Of course, we have the web classes. We go to clients every year, almost 300 a year across the country. Books. There's lots of stuff you can check out on our site, lots of free material, but I really urge you to check out purewildlifeblends.com.